Let's go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and welcome James Marino and Alexander O'Neill as they lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and sing our national anthem.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Obviously, this is an extremely exciting day for all of us here at CCSU. Central Connecticut State University is the first and as such the oldest public university in the state of Connecticut. I personally want to extend a very special and warm welcome to President Obama, the 44th President of the United States.
I want to thank Governors Patrick, Chafee, and Shumlin for joining us here today. The governors of New England stand united in working for working families and a working wage. I know that our congressional delegation, our senators and congresspeople are here. I don't know exactly where they are. I want to thank them for the work that they do on our behalf. There they are. You, the students of Central Connecticut, I want to thank you for being here and say what a great college, one of our oldest colleges in the state of Connecticut. That if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty in Connecticut or in any of the There is a time to lead and there is a time to follow. I will follow this president on the great policies that he has put forward. But New England needs to lead on this issue. They deserve a decent wage and we're going to give it to them here in Connecticut. We collectively have an obligation to leave this world a better place for our having been here and lived in it. If we live that mission, each and every one of us individually, then we will also be following the example of our next guest, the President of the United States, Barac Obama.
Student Government Association logo, which has a gavel and a pitchfork, which is pretty intense. And I wish some folks in Congress used the gavel more. And today we're doing something a little different than usual. Usually when I hit the road and talk with folks like all of you, I've got a governor with me, but you are special. So we decided one governor wasn't enough. So in addition to Governor Malloy, we've got Lincoln Chafee of Rhode Island, Paul Patrick of Massachusetts, Peter Shumlin of Vermont, table. I love you back. But we can't just spend the whole day talking about how we love each other. That's not why I came. We are here today. We're here today because each of us cares deeply about creating new jobs and new opportunities for all Americans. And we're at this interesting moment in our economy. Our economy's been growing. Our businesses have created 8.5 million new jobs over the past 4 years. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in over 5 years. Those are all things that we should be proud of. But there are some trends out there that have been battering the middle class for a long, long time, well before this Great Recession hit. And in some ways, some of those trends have gotten worse, not better. Now, the nature of today's economy with technology and globalization means that there are folks at the top who are doing better than ever. But average wages have barely budged. Average incomes have not gone up. Too many Americans are working harder than ever just to keep up. So as I said at my State of the Union address, we've got to reverse those trends. It is a central task for all of us to build an economy that works for everybody, not just for some. So many of us understand that at the heart of America, the central premise of this country is the chance to achieve your dreams if you work hard, if you take responsibility. That it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. Individuals want a chance to make it if they try. And what makes us special is we already do that when we're at our best. But we've got some work to do to match up our ideals with the reality that's happening on the ground right now. And the opportunity agenda that I've laid out is designed to help us restore that idea of opportunity for everybody. For this generation, the generation of young people who are studying here and are about to enter the workforce. And it's got 4 parts. Part 1 is something that I know the seniors here are very interested in, which is more good jobs that pay good wages. Job number 2 is training more Americans with the skill that they need to fill those good jobs, so that our workforce is prepared for the jobs of tomorrow. Part 3, guaranteeing every young person in this country access to a world-class education. From we can't be satisfied with just recovering the jobs that were lost during the recession. We've got to rebuild our economy so it's creating a steady supply of good jobs today and well into the future. Jobs in high-tech manufacturing and in energy and in exports and in American innovation. So that's job number 1. Now, there's a 4th part of this agenda. By the way, I just noticed, if you've got chairs, feel free to sit down. I know the folks here don't have chairs, but you know, I don't want you guys. And if you're standing up, make sure to bend your knees so you don't faint. All right, I just want to check on you. The 4th component of this opportunity agenda is making sure that if you are working hard, then you get ahead. And that means making sure women receive equal pay for equal work. When the women succeed, America succeeds. That means making sure that you can save and retire with dignity. It means health insurance that's there when you're sick and you need it most. And you guys are doing a great job about implementing the Affordable Care Act here in Connecticut. If any of you know a young person who is uninsured, help them get covered. And healthcare.gov, the website works just fine now. And making work pay means wages and paychecks that let you support a family. As Americans, we understand that some folks are going to earn more than others. We don't resent success. We are thrilled with the opportunities that America affords. Nobody who works full-time should ever have to raise a family in poverty. And that's why it's time to give America a raise. A year ago, I asked Congress to raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage. Since that time, 6 states have passed laws to raise theirs, including right here in Connecticut. And they formed a regional coalition to raise the minimum wage. If they succeed in their efforts, New England will have some of the highest minimum wages in the country. And they're not stopping there. These 4 governors are here in support of raising America's minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to $10.10 an hour. Now, raising wages is not just a job for elected officials. In my State of the Union address, I asked more business leaders to do what they can to raise their workers' wages. It's a smart way to boost productivity, to reduce turnover, to instill loyalty in your employees. It's not bad business to do right by your workers. It's good business. Last week I read about Jackson's. It's an ice cream parlor in Florida that's been in business since 1956. They just announced they would lift workers' wages to at least $10.10 an hour without cutting back on hiring. People work their tails off every day. They don't have anything flashy out there. And you know what? They're not expecting to get rich, but they do feel like if they're putting in back-breaking work every day, they deserve an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. The working Americans have struggled through stagnant wages for too long. So my goal is, and the goal of everybody on this stage, is to help lift wages, help lift take-home pay in any way we can. And that's why I've done everything I can to lift wages for hardworking federal contractors. It's why I've asked business owners to raise their wages. It's why I'm supporting elected officials at the local level, governors. What every American wants is a paycheck that lets them support their families, know a little economic security, pass down some hope and optimism to their kids. That's what I'm trying to say. But I want to make one last point. If we're going to finish the job, Congress has to get on board. Lift wages for about 200,000 people just right here in Connecticut. It would lift wages for about 1 million New Englanders. It would lift wages for nearly 28 million Americans across this country. It would immediately raise millions of people out of poverty. It would help millions more work their way out of poverty. And it doesn't require new taxes, doesn't require new spending, doesn't require some new bureaucracy. And here's one last point. It turns out, what happens if workers got a little more money in their pockets? They spend a little more money, which means that suddenly businesses have more customers, which means they make more profits, which means they can hire more workers, which means you get a virtuous cycle. It's common sense. That's what it is. Right now, Republicans in Congress don't want to vote on raising the minimum wage. Some have actually said they just want to scrap the minimum wage. One of them said, I think it's outlived its usefulness. I'd vote to repeal the minimum wage. One of them said it's never worked. Now, some even said it only helps young people. Now, as if that's a bad thing, I think we should want to help young people. But here's the truth about who it would help. Most people who would get a raise if we raise the minimum wage are not teenagers on their first job. with our economy's productivity, they'd already be earning well over $10 an hour today. Instead, it's stuck at $7.25. Every time Congress refuses to raise it, it loses value because cost of living goes higher. Minimum wage stays the same. Right now, it's worth 20% less than it was when Ronald Reagan took office. This is not a small thing. This is a big deal. It makes a big difference in the lives of a lot of families. So, members of Congress have a choice to make. It is a clear choice. Raise workers' wages, grow our economy, or let wages stagnate further, give workers what amounts to another pay cut. Fortunately, folks in Connecticut have really good delegations, so your senators and representatives are already on board. But anybody who's watching at home, you deserve to know where your elected official stands. So just ask them, do you support raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour? If they say yes, say thanks. Great job. We need encouragement too, elected officials. If they say no, you should be polite. But you should say, why not? Ask them to reconsider. Ask them to side with the majority of Americans. Instead of saying no for once, say yes. It's time for 10-10. It's time to give America a raise. Doug is the president of Wade's Dairy down in Bridgeport. His great-grandfather, Frank, is that right? Frank, started the family business in 1893. 1893. One of the secrets to their success is that they treat their employees like part of the family. So Doug pays his own workers fairly, but he goes a step further than that. He writes editorials, he talks to fellow business leaders, he meets with elected officials to make the case for a higher minimum wage for everybody. And keep in mind, Doug spent most of his life as a registered Republican. This is not about politics. This is about common sense. Backstage, Doug showed me a pay stub because it describes his own story. When he was flipping burgers back in 1970, his employer paid him the minimum wage, but it went 25% farther than it does today. So Doug speaks from experience when he says that things like the minimum wage raise the bar for everybody. And he's still got that paycheck. And it looks like the paycheck I got when I was working at Baskin Robbins. You know, the point that Doug and his family and his business represents is we believe in hard work, we believe in responsibility, we believe in individual initiative, but we also come together to raise the bar for everybody, to make sure our fellow citizens can pursue their own dreams as well, that they can look after their kids and lift them up. We look out for each other. That's who we are. That is our story. There are millions of Americans like Dannel and like all of you who are tired of your political arguments, ready to raise the bar a little higher. Let's move it up. Let's go further. That's what I'm going to do as president, as long as I'm the honor of serving in this office, and I need your help. Let's go out there and give America a raise. God bless you.
Hands off Ukraine!